Arun, obviously, thank you for taking the time to be on here. I know it's a Friday afternoon, so I appreciate it. And like I said, how I found this or came about this, saw your Google review, thought you'd have a cool story. So really just to kick it off, a lot of people don't buy cars super often. And I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, this is actually your first new car purchase. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's actually my very first new car. Yeah.
Really? So one, why were you in the market initially? Were you in an accident? Did you not have a car before? Or like, why were you even starting the car shopping process, so to speak?
Yeah, I feel I'm turning 26 this year, and I feel I've been a student forever now. After high school, I did my undergrad, and soon after my undergrad, I started my 2-year master's program. So I was just studying the entire time, and I always lived close to the university where I went. So I never felt the need or had the financial capacity to like buy my own car. And I was very particular about making sure my first car was actually my own purchase without like any parental support.
Right.
And then I graduated in May of 2020. I got my first full-time job in the first place that I really wanted to work. But then COVID hit, it was work from home. And I was like, this is a great time to save money instead of buying a car. So I kind of like did not buy a car for like the first year that I was working. And then come 2022, I was like, now is a great time to buy a car. And I also had just the right amount of money saved up
Nice.
for buying my first car. So yeah, I just
That's
decided
awesome.
to buy one. Yeah. And
That's
I guess
exciting.
initially when I started my search, a lot of my family and friends suggested I buy a secondhand car, which was also a first consideration for me. But then I feel with the COVID and the car market that was there, buying a brand new car was like way better because I felt like there was more value for the money I'm giving.
Sure.
A secondhand car of the same model and the brand new car of that same model were like just a few $1,000 difference.
Crazy.
So I was like, brand new car it is.
I love it. And I want to touch on that a little bit later because it is a crazy time. I know this is new for even us in the automotive industry with everything going on with COVID. As you know, you work closely with that stuff. But in terms of finding a car, I want to know kind of like not your experience, but what was your process? There's a million places you can go find cars online, but as best you can remember, like how did you go about the process? Like where did you start looking? Like what did that look like to even find the car you wanted?
Yeah. I'll be very honest. I do not know much about cars. I was never interested in knowing more about cars. So for me, the research had to like start very initially on just like understanding different technicalities of a car, the price ranges. I didn't even know what a tentative range for a car would have been until I started the research. So that's how naive I was in the whole car buying process. So I started with Google is always my friend. So started Googling. And one of my first key search was the most affordable cars of 2021, 2022. I started there and I kind of got the biggest price after, even though it's just been a year since I've started working. So finance, like the financial aspect was like a huge part of my decision making, right? How much money am I going to put down? What's my monthly payment? So money is where I really started the search. And then once I figured out like the top 10 affordable cars that are out there, within those 10 cars, I started researching, like if Kia Forte was like one of the other suggestions I had in my plate. So just going through like different features. For me, looks of the car definitely trumps a lot more than, the various technical aspects out there. Yeah. So I did take some help from my guy friends who knew more about cars. I think of all those lists, the reason I stuck to Elantra was like, it was called the affordable luxury car of 2022, according to a lot of the Google searches. So that like really struck out. I used YouTube, those car reviews that are on YouTube channels.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So I went through a couple of those videos and the red Hyundai Elantra, the limited version looked like really sexy. Like the design was bold. And I think that suited my personality a lot. And the third most important thing was because my partner, he bought a Hyundai Elantra in 2018.
Oh, okay.
So I have actually driven in a Elantra a lot. So I know I can trust the brand and quality of the cars. So Hyundai Elantra was always in the top of my list from the very beginning of my search. And then while it came to the finance aspect, the fact that it was very much affordable for me really helped. And I felt like I was getting the best deal for the money I was paying with that model. So there were no competitors among the search list I had. And the fact that I could get a 22 model, considering the market, I was just like very happy and lucky.
Absolutely. So I got to ask, because you mentioned you looked for the features and stuff. Aru, on your top, your 5, what are the features your car must have? What comes to mind when you're thinking feature?
Let's see. So I love the fact, so the interiors and the exteriors should look like, my dad has only owned a sedan car, and my dad is financially way well off than I am. So
a lot more experience though, a lot more experience. He's been around longer, so.
Yeah. And he works in corporate, I work in nonprofit, so I don't earn as much as my friends, my parents. So the kind of sedans that I grew up using, I kind of wanted a sedan for myself that had a similar feel and experience, but without paying that much money. So for me, that was number 1 consideration. And Elantra gave me all that and more. Nice. Number 2, I think the digital screens. This is the era of like having music experience, the Google Maps, the best of the best interface for your cars. So I think anything, and the fact that my partner had an Elantra with those fancy digital screens, the fact that, the Android Auto, all those basic features. Let's see, another that would, I guess for me, those 2 would have been the topmost, and obviously the basic things like manual transmission, automatic transmission, and what else? Yeah, I guess those 3 must have been the top priorities. Yeah, and then once I took a look at the Elantra that I have currently, they had like features like you just drop your phone into the car and then it automatically connects using Bluetooth. There was no wired. That was different from my partner's car. So I guess, and the very touch and feel of the steering wheel, the screen in front of your steering wheel, all of that. It was just like amazing.
Awesome.
In general, love the feel of it.
That's wonderful. So you kind of mentioned, started on Google search, looking for affordability, or looking for that, found the Elantra. After that, how did you find Walser Hyundai? Did you look at other dealerships, or did you go on like a listing site like Auto Trader, Cars.com, any of those? Or was it, okay, I know I want the Elantra based on affordability, all the features you just named, and then it's Hyundai dealership near me? Or what was kind of your journey to finding Walser Hyundai? I guess I'm curious.
Yeah, so I look for Hyundai dealerships in general around the vicinity. And then websites were not super helpful in helping me understand if my particular car would be there or not, because all the websites show that these are there and these are the price ranges. So I started making calls to all of them. Gotcha. And then the first 3 dealerships that I called were near the area, did not have the Hyundai Elantra models coming in anytime soon. They were like, we know a model is coming in, but we just don't have any stock right now. So I think the 3rd or the 4th call was to the Walser Hyundai near Brooklyn Park, which is where I work. So the dealership is actually like a minute drive from my workplace. Oh, nice. Yeah. So I was like, that's convenient. So I called them and they had exactly 2 models. One was in the showroom that day. And the other, and I actually went and took a look at the blue Elantra that very same day. Oh. Yeah, they made the call to Sam. And then number 2, the second car was coming in, I think 2 months from then. It was a red color one. That's the one I own actually. And that kind of fitted my timeline better because I was planning to make an international travel soon. So I let Sam know that, hey, I'm going to go off for a month. So I think it's best if I come back, and by the time the red model would have come, and I can just like once I take a look and do a test drive. And if I like it, I think that's the one I can like realistically go for. And then yeah, I ended up getting that one.
I love it. I love it. I think one time, a lot of things we hear in this industry, and rightfully so, because it's, if you've never done it, you've never done it, but buying a car from a dealership probably, I would assume, is a little intimidating, especially if you've never done it. Mm-hmm. Can you just talk me through, like, what were your expectations before, say you didn't go to Walser? Like, what was your like just your gut feeling? Okay, these dealerships, wherever I go, they're going to treat me like X, Y, Z. Like, what did you kind of expect before, regardless of the dealership brand? Like, what was your impression of dealerships at that time?
Yeah, so before I kind of thought, so the market right now is such that, you can't negotiate with dealers. And I think I had that expectation, right? It's like, the availability of car itself is low and the prices are like the max out there. It's either you get a car or you don't get a car. So I had a feeling that the dealership and the salesman are gonna like take advantage of me because I'm in a position of disadvantage. So the best I could do was take my partner who at least have had experience owning 2 different cars and have driven a lot. He understands the technicalities of it. And he also understands that salesmen can sometimes be, like they can take advantage of you. So he just came with me for that first meeting at the Walser Hyundai dealership. And yeah, every time we have a conversation, every 2 minutes we would have like a break when nobody's around. I would look at him and be like, hey, is this going good? Do you think something's wrong happening? Am I on the right track? So I handle all the conversations myself because I really wanted to, but then he was always with me, making sure I'm not doing anything naive. And I have to say that a lot of our collective assumptions about dealership changed after this experience and I think a lot of the credits goes to Sam because Sam and I was able to create that relationship over a span of like 1.5 months. The time I made that first call to the time I bought the car, there was a span of about 1.5 months. And we kept in touch constantly through emails, through text messages, just like he would constantly update me with like, what are the financial options? I think the first meeting we had with him was regarding the financial aspect. Like, should I lease it? Should I buy it? That was one of my first doubts ever. It took me almost a month to figure out if I want to lease it or buy it, actually. Yeah, because for a new owner, you don't really understand the difference. So the first session, he sat us down and, that one of my first questions to Sam was like, hey, people say leasing is bad online, but dealership always says leasing is good. So what are you guys gaining from it? Because clearly you guys are looting us. So I asked that question straight out.
I love it.
Laughed. And Sam just laughed and he was like, hey, listen, my daughter just bought a car. We're not trying to loot you. And this is exactly what it is. So he kind of explained the difference between leasing and financing a car. And he was definitely like inclining more towards lease because he thought that works better. And then I took 1 month, like really understand, what works best for me. And I ended up financing the car simply because I realized the market is so bad right now that at least 5 years from now, I might own the car and I can sell it for like not bad a price if this market continues. But as if I lease the car, I might just not get that opportunity. But the fact that he took that time to like really explain it out to me and then, made me feel more safe and comfortable. I really appreciated that. So that's that. But then, that 1 month of communication with him really helped. He really supported me through like that whole step.
Yeah. And that's awesome. I kind of wanted to get a little more information on that because I think a lot of people think, okay, I find the car, I come in the next day, I buy it. And a lot of times that's just not reality. You said a month and a half, you were in communication. One thing at Walser we've tried to do, and it's fairly new, but is the implementation of using more video to communicate. A lot of people are very video centric. Did you get videos from Sam? Like, how do you prefer to get communicated with as a customer as you're going through this process? Do you prefer a text? Do you prefer a call? Is it like, talk to me a little bit about that.
Right. So for me, I am an absolute professional. So emails work best, but also with Sam and I, we had all modes of communication. He did the videos, he did text, emails, calls, we did all of it. I personally am okay with emails. But yeah, I don't mind all the other modes of communications either. For me, it's like, I think in terms of buying a car, email helps just because if you have more attachments you have, the more, the feature, like buying a car is one thing, but then you have all these protection plans that comes on it, all these additional premium packages. And website, I feel, does a decent job with helping you customize it, but still, it's nice to have it on like a paper. Like for me, finance was a huge consideration, right? So if I have with every email, if it came with a document saying that, hey, you want these 3 things, these are the prices, and that's your final code, that's your final monthly payment. That would be like so much more relieving for me. And unfortunately, the way your system works, I couldn't get that until the very day I paid for the car and I got it. And Sam tried to explain that's just the way system works. A lot of the things work on the employee's iPad and not like easily forwardable, downloadable PDFs that can be sent to me because it depends on so many factors. And I kind of understood that why it worked that way because he had to still walk me through all the protection plans. But as a new first-time owner, I would definitely appreciate having that information prior because leasing and finance me took me a 1 month. So if I can get, I think there were 5 different protection plans. So if I can get a PDF that explains what each 5 protection plans mean, giving me enough time to like research them, what do I need, what do I not need, and then the money aspect of it. Like if I take 3 of them, how much am I really paying? How much does that increase my monthly payment? Having that clarity would like be really stress busting for me.
Absolutely. No, it's like you said, it can be a little, especially as a new buyer, it's stressful and you just want as much information as you can. You're kind of going there. One thing you said earlier, I want to pick your brain on more, was you kind of had this preconceived notion of what dealerships are, and rightfully so. Like there are a lot of dealerships in the past and probably today, if you went there, that they do try to take advantage of people. And you mentioned the no negotiation. So I don't know if Sam explained it, but Walser, we were actually one of the first dealerships in this area to do what we call a best price, where if you came in and bought a car, I came in, or Joe down the street, it's kind of like if you went to Target, you want a bottle of soap, there's the price. That's what it is up front. We call it our Walser upfront price.
Yeah.
Did you like the aspect of not having to go back and forth, wondering if you're getting a good deal, or do you like where it's almost like I said, a retail store? Okay, this is what the price is. No matter who comes in, it's based off the market. Do you like that, or would you prefer to go back and forth? What do you prefer as a first-time car buyer? What do you think?
So I do not have good negotiation strategy. I'm not good at it. So yes, I would definitely prefer having that solid numbers out there and then giving me that choice to figure out within the price you're offering, what can I pick and choose? Gotcha. So definitely I would go for the former option. And I pretty much like the system that you guys have already. For me, it was just the fact that if I got that information prior, I can still sit with it, do my own research, make sure, what if I got the protection plans outside Hyundai? Would there be a better offer? Like those are some of the questions I still had in my mind. And those questions wouldn't arise if I can have that information with me prior, I guess.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha. So on that note, I just have a couple more questions. This has been great, by the way. I appreciate you again taking the time out here. It's fun listening to you. I wish I could talk to more people like you and just hear people's feedback. It's cool. So biggest surprise, you go in there, you found you out the Elantra, you go to Walser Hyundai, or maybe I'm assuming, did you submit an inquiry online and that's how you guys kind of started your communication with Sam? Or did you go straight in? And
yeah, I think for the first few dealers, I definitely put in an inquiry and they did get back. But I think for the Walser Hyundai one, I just ended up calling. It was a few months back, so I might be wrong. But from what I remember, I just gave them a call and I asked like, hey, I'm looking for this model. Do you have it? And then they connected me to Sam, who said there are exactly 2 models available.
Gotcha. So you're through the process, you got your car, you're on your way home. Looking back on it now, biggest surprise working with, say, Walser Hyundai, like maybe you thought it was going to be like this, it was actually this. Like what was the biggest thing that stuck about in your mind, whether you really enjoyed a certain process or you're just like, wow, I thought this would be different and it was actually better than I thought, or whatever it was? Like what was the biggest surprise looking back, in your opinion?
Yeah, I guess just it comes back to the earlier discussion, just the fact that I feel we have a very negative idea of a salesman in our heads, especially when it comes to car dealership, because that's how media always portrays it. That's how I feel, especially the boomer generation, right? Because when you buy big investments like house and a car, you always talk to your parents first, not mostly to your friends. You usually always go back to your parents who have more experience buying them. So from, I think both of my parents and my partner's parents, we all heard about the fact that, their stories of them going to dealership and negotiating a price, getting a great deal and all of that. So in my head, it was like, I'm going to go there, someone's going to take advantage of me and I'm going to come back with a bad deal. And that was definitely stressing me out. But what instead happened was I walked into Walser Hyundai, Sam showed me the options, like these are the 10 things. And then depending on what permutation combination you choose, this is your final payment, this is your monthly payment. So that I definitely appreciated. And I think I loved having that. And now I'm teaching all my recently graduates of the youth that, hey, next year when you guys buy a car, this is the best part of it, that you can pick and choose. And now I can educate them on what those protection plans means, because I don't think I ever knew that. A lot of the protection plans were also new, so even my partner didn't know that.
Sure.
And then I felt another thing that stuck with me was the fact that, and I don't know if this is a Walser Hyundai thing or it's a Sam thing, but he definitely gave me the choice. Like, it was never like, oh, this is the best thing to do. It was more like, hey, these are the 2 options. in your, and I usually like talk through my constraints. Like my financial constraint was the biggest one. I was like, I have a budget for my monthly payment and I need to stick in it.
Right.
So he would be like, if that's your priority between these two choices, I would say the latter is better. So for example, I initially wanted to give a down payment of almost like $7,000, $8,000 just so I can get my monthly payment to that exact amount I wanted.
Sure.
Because I had saved up that amount. So I had no issue paying that.
Mm-hmm.
And I walked in and Sam was like, I see what you're thinking, but think about this. The minute your car leaves the store, the value of your car drops. So that's that much amount you're technically losing. But if you keep that same amount in your bank account and pay it every few months, you're not technically losing that money. And if you just constantly think from like your monthly payment being a certain way, you're actually losing more money. And that discussion, I think, lasted for like 20 minutes. We were just going back and forth with like every possible scenario. So I really like that. It was not me against him. He was working with me to figure out what are my priorities and how can he make it happen. And finally, at the end, I ended up only paying $4,000 in down payment. That way, we met somewhere in the middle ground, not his way, not my way. We found in the middle ground. I only paid $4,000. It's a slightly few dollars above my monthly payment, but looking back, I realized I was bank account as just a few couple of dollars that I'm paying every month. So looking back, that was a good choice. So I liked having somebody work with me and not against me. That makes sense.
No, I love it. I love that because I think that's the thing. It's not me against you. And that's one thing with Walser, and I'm not trying to sell them. I think it's interesting because a lot of car dealerships, people are paid on commission. So you came in, say the car, we'll just say 30 grand. If they can try to, nickel and dime you and get you for 32,000 or whatever, they might make a commission on that. If you come into Walser and you buy it, we don't care what you buy it for because I'm not a sales guy, but Sam's case, he doesn't make any more money. So I think when you can remove the element of, hey, I need to try to squeeze everybody for money, it becomes a teamwork where it's like, hey, Arun and I, we're just trying to find a car that fits her situation. She wants it and financially it makes sense. Yeah. That's perfect on us. So it makes me happy hearing that was your experience and you felt like it was a team effort because that's what we strive to do. And I just appreciate you sharing that. So you kind of touched on it. A couple more questions here. Yes. You're gonna start. I'm gonna look on Facebook under groups for new car buyers for the lessons you're gonna teach. So I'll keep an eye. But that actually was one of my questions. So for new college grads, obviously, congrats on recently graduating. What advice would you give to someone who is maybe nervous about going to a car dealership, buying a car? What advice would you give to somebody who's just starting that process, looking back on everything you've kind of experienced the last couple months?
Oh boy.
Not to put you on the spot, but I feel like you have some good knowledge in there.
Right. Let me see. So if I talk about a lot of my PhD scholars, who might earn like a similar bracket as I would, I think their constraints and their doubts would be very similar to mine, like how to make sure their monthly payments fit in a certain budget. So I guess my suggestion for them would be to do as much research, figure out what are the best, because people are still at the end of the day want a good car. So I guess helping them figure out what are the cars that fit their personality that are out there, but also fit their price range. And yeah, I would feel it too, pretentious if I ended up giving advices to somebody else, because I think everyone's situations are different. I don't know. I think that's the most I can give an advice to someone, I guess.
For sure. Yeah, it's just do your research and know what you're kind of getting into, understand your situation type of thing.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, right now, my friend, she's going to Rochester for her summer internship. She's a PhD scholar.
Oh, nice.
She's doing amazing things in her life, legit, finding a solution for Alzheimer's. That's her project. It's amazing. Wow. But she's still a student and she only has a budget of $3,000 to find a car for the summer alone.
Gotcha.
Think about it. That's the kind of constraints we're working with. So and I know this because we were just discussing about cars, and realistically, I can't give her any advice because both of her situation was so different. Right. My budget was $23,000, $24,000. Her budget is $3,000.
Sure.
So I guess it'll be pretentious of me if I end up giving some advice to someone.
Gotcha. So last thing I'm curious about, Hyundai, you're in the Elantra. What has been your favorite part of the car? How has it been treating you? What do you think of the Hyundai brand? Because this is your first, we got to set the bar high because it's your first car, but how has your experience been with your Elantra? What do you love about it? And any other things you want to share about it?
I love everything about it. I named her Kyra.
Ah, let's go. It's got a name. I love it.
And I just looked at her and I was like, she's a Kyra. And ever since then, I have been I've been treating Kyra like a person. Every time I talk to my friend, I'm like, yeah, Kyra just beeps a lot I think that's one of the things as a new, because I'm also a new driver, right? I passed my road test just a few months back.
Oh, gotcha.
It was actually in January, I passed my road test. So as a new driver, I never thought of this way, but you need to buy a car with a lot of good safety features. And when I bought Kyra, that was not my consideration. But now that I'm driving it, I'm like, the safety features from the 2018 Elantra that my partner drives and the one I have it's already like several steps ahead.
Wow.
And I realized that this should have been my consideration. Maybe that's my advice to new
There you
drivers.
go.
Like you need to buy a car with good safety features because even if you're paying a few $1,000s more, it's worth it. Because the kind of confidence I have when I drive my car versus me driving anybody else's car is so different. I trust Kyra. Kyra beeps a lot. She beeps for everything. Like the car in front of me, if they start driving when the signal turns green, Kyra beeps saying that, hey, the car in front of you is leading away. I'm like, Kyra, I know. But I like the fact that she's looking, out for me. I also like, the lane change assist was amazing. I did not know the lane assist technology that well. Okay. Until I got Kyra, and it's life changing. Every time I take like a steep turn, Kyra will be like, nope, a little more. And she just steers it for me. And I'm like, I love it. So I think awesome. The safety features of Kyra is something I really appreciate. And I think I got the value for the money I paid. And then obviously the design. Everyone who sees Kyra for the first time says, oh my God, she's sexy. I'm like, I know. I know. She's red. And then the back design for the Elantra 2022 model, it's really good. And it's quite bold. And I like having, it fits my personality, I feel. And yeah, I just love driving her everywhere.
I love it. I love it. It's serious when you start giving your cars names and doing that stuff. So that's awesome. Well, that's all I had. I'm just so thankful that you took the time, like I said, to jump on here and share your experience. I think people who are going to watch, especially new car buyers, are going to be helpful knowing they're not alone. You've been through it. And it wasn't hopefully as intimidating as it seems. And now you're in a car that you, like you said, are sexy and you're the talk of the town and where you live. So I love it. So again, just thank you for being on here, and thank you again for choosing Walser Hyundai. If you ever need anything in the future, whether it's service or hopefully in a few years when you're getting a car, maybe not in a few years, maybe further down the road, but whenever you do that, Sam or someone from our store can help you find something. But again, Aru, just thank you for taking the time here. I appreciate that.